Hey everyone, let's compare how Dana Bash interviews JD Vance versus Kamala Harris.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Senator.
Thank
so
you.
within a week of you being named on the BP ticket, the Democratic nominee changed. And you guys seem to be struggling a little bit with how to approach the new dynamic. How are you approaching your new opponent and the new ticket?
All right, that's a tough first question, but all right, let's jump into it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's pretty straightforward, actually. We're running against a set of policies that I think have failed the American people, and we're running to a set of policies, President Trump's 4 years in office, that I think really succeeded for the American people.
Wow, look at that frown face right there. Did what he say bother you that much about success?
And I think that what's different about it, you're right, Dana, it is different. But what's different about it is that we're running against a different person who a lot of Americans just don't know. And so I think we have to remind people that President Trump delivered lower prices, lower inflation, a prosperous and peaceful world, and also a secure border. And Kamala Harris's policies have produced the exact opposite. Now, that was an easier case to make when Joe Biden was in there because people associate Joe Biden with the policies. But I think Kamala Harris clearly owns the policies of the Biden-Harris administration, especially when we consider the fact that, as we've all learned over the last few months, Joe Biden clearly isn't capable of doing the job. And so I think that drives home that Kamala Harris really has been the one calling the shots. I mean, how could she not? I think Joe Biden doesn't really know where he is.
Okay, so she asked a leading question of, you guys have been struggling, and he explained exactly what the struggle is. All right, sounds reasonable.
Kamala Harris has been calling the shots, says who?
Okay. So he said something that's a little bit out there, that Kamala has been calling the shots. And her follow-up question basically is not believing it. Or giving him a chance to explain that because, it is out there. So that's fine. I'm fine with her asking that follow-up question. But, so basically she's acknowledged that he answered the first question, and this is a follow-up question about something else. So it's not really a follow-up question. It's another question. Okay, let's keep watching, but we'll see how she treats Kamala with her follow-up questions.
Well, I think she has to have been, right? Because if she's not calling the shots, Dana, then who is? And I do think it drives home something that's fundamentally dishonest about the way that Vice President Harris and also a lot of senior Democrats have approached this. If you remember, for months, even years, the argument was that Joe Biden was sharp, he could clearly do the job, and the minute that he performed poorly in that debate and he became political dead weight, you have Kamala Harris and everybody else trying to throw him overboard. But I think the more troubling question is, why did so many senior Democrats, including the vice president, cover for him? And if Joe Biden wasn't capable of doing the job, as even a lot of Democrats say now, was Kamala Harris in charge or was somebody else in charge? And that's a real issue.
So he did a good job of answering her follow-up question, right to the point. And let's see where she goes with this now.
And no evidence that Kamala Harris threw him overboard. But I want to move on to some.
Okay, so now she stopped interviewing and she just simply said what she believes are facts, that there's no evidence that Kamala threw him overboard. All right, and doesn't give him a chance to follow up. All right, I mean, that's not being an interview at that point. That's Dana Bash testifying, not asking JD Vance a question. But I'm sure she's equally tough with Kamala. Let's see what she did with Kamala's first question.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for sitting down with me and bringing the bus. The bus tour is well underway here in Georgia.
Oh, isn't that a nice friendly warm-up?
You have less time to make your case to voters than any candidate in modern American history. The voters are really eager to hear what your plans are. If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
All right, so that's a little bit of a softball question. I'm sure she has plans for her day one. I mean, almost every politician does, right? On day one, I'm going to do this, that. I'm sure Kamala has a great answer for this. Let's see.
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class. When I look at the aspirations, the goals, the ambitions of the American people, I think that people are ready for a new way forward.
Well, if they were looking for a new way forward, they wouldn't be electing someone into the White House who's already in the White House. But that's beside the point.
In a way that generations of Americans have been fueled by hope and by optimism. I think, sadly, in the last decade.
In the last decade? You're talking about day one. Why don't you just answer the question?
We have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
It's a little confusing of an answer here, because if they're looking to turn the page on the last decade, why are they voting in someone who has been there for the last 4 years? But that's a different topic. But the question here is Dana Bash. So let's see how she's going to respond, because obviously Kamala didn't answer the question whatsoever of what is she going to do day one. She just talked about a whole bunch of other things, including a history lesson of the last 10 years, which would include herself and President Obama for the last 10 years. But I'm sure Dana Bash is going to ask really good question to really pin it to her.
What would you do day one?
Day one, it's going to be about, one, implementing my plan for what I call an opportunity economy. I've already laid out a number of proposals in that regard, which include what we're going to do to bring down the cost of everyday goods, what we're going to do to invest in America's small businesses, what we're going to do to invest in families, for example, extending the child tax credit to $6,000 for families for the first year of their child's life, to help them buy a car seat, to help them buy baby clothes, a crib. There's the work that we're going to do that is about investing in the American family around affordable housing, a big issue in our country right now. So there are a number of things on day one.
Well, if you're going to do all that on day one, then why do we even need to give you 4 years? In fact, why have you needed the last 4 years? I don't know. It's really not a good answer. Obviously, she's not. The point of the day one question is, what's your top priority? What are you going to jump in and start doing right away? What is the number one or number two things that you're going to do? And yeah, she just named off what she plans on really doing over the course of 4 or 8 years. But I'm sure Dana Bash is really going to ask a really good follow-up question.
What about you?
Well, I'm excited about this agenda.
Nope, I guess not. And that's the way the whole interview went. All right. Well, just wanted to compare these two interviews and see how the first question did versus with J.D. Vance versus the first question with Kamala. And clearly, Dana Bash had her favorites.